Hello, welcome to the Mad Batter channel. My name's Chris. Since my last video about Luminar Neo in May, Skylum have been busy producing further updates. We've had 1.0.6 followed by 1.0.7 and in the last few days 1.1.0. The 1.0.6 update had as its major feature the mask AI function. Until that point the only masking had been a brush, but now we have both radial and linear gradient masking and mask AI, which automatically finds various features. There are still no luminosity masks and there's no ability to feather AI masks directly, but it is a great improvement. In addition, they reintroduced the histogram, which was a major feature that had been missing. So if we go into edit, if you can't see the histogram, go into Luminar Neo, view and show histogram, and there it appears up the top. You'll also notice two little circles. These are the clipping masks, which you can activate by pressing the J key and deactivate by pressing the J key again. What these do is let you know if you're clipping, i.e. making parts of the picture pure white or pure black with no detail. So for instance, if I go into the light and increase the exposure, you quickly see we've got a large amount of red showing in the sky, which means that is pure white. On the other hand, if I go the other way, we get a dark blue overlay which shows areas which are pure black. It's best to avoid any clipping in your photos. Update 1.0.7 introduced a couple of features. First was the ability to be able to favourite tools. Now, as you can see, and as you probably know, the tools are in 4 categories: Essentials, Creative, Portrait and Professional. Most of your basic work will be in Essentials, but if you have all these open, and let's say you've done some work in Develop, I'm a great fan of Super Contrast, but in order to access that you then have to go all the way down, scroll down here to get to Super Contrast. But now if you right click you can add to Favourites, and now you'll see it appears at the top of the stack and is no longer in the Professional. So it's much easier, let's say I've done some work in Develop, just to nip up to Super Contrast to do some further updates. The other thing that was introduced was masking on layers rather than on tools. So for instance, let's say we decide to add a light leak, but we decide that all we want is this bit here. Now under layer properties we've got masking, so let's say we'll take a linear gradient and just cover up the bit that we want, and then we'll take a brush in erase, get rid of all this up here which we don't want, reduce the strength to gradually get rid of this bit here that we don't want, and now all we've got is this light leak here. So that's a useful thing, and it's very important when we come to consider background removal, or rather portrait background removal, as it enables us to remove the background from other than pictures of human beings. I'll come to that in the next section. The most recent update in the last few days has been 1.1.0, in which Skylum have introduced the last major feature which they promised when they announced the software, i.e. portrait background removal. I'll do a separate video on this, but the first observation is to say that it's a pity it only works with people and not other objects, but there is a workaround for that, for anything which can be masked. Again, I'll deal with that in a separate video. Another improvement is that you can now add a layer in the form of a raw file. Formerly it was only JPEGs and the like. So for instance, if we click on the plus, you'll see all these raw files appear. So if we double click on this, you'll see it introduces it, and then if we double click again, it'll be added as a layer. Increase the capacity to 100. So there we are. So that's a new feature. In addition, you've also been able to adjust the order of layers other than the background layer, but now you can also adjust the background layer and change the order. Finally, the other new feature is in exporting. You can export not only a JPEG but now a PNG with transparency, a TIFF, JPEG 2000, and even a PDF. I gather in the Mac version you can also export to Photoshop file format. So again, that's another improvement. So where does that leave us with Neo? It's being advertised that Update 1.1.0 now makes the software feature complete. It certainly includes all the major new features that were promised when the software was announced, but there are still significant gaps. There's no clone and stamp, no dodge and burn, although Skylum have apparently said they will be added in due course. There's no luminosity masks, and there's still no undo and redo, which is really quite annoying. There is, however, a partial workaround for the lack of an undo function. Previous versions of Luminar had a history panel, and you could go to that and go back to any step in the editing process, but it was linear. If you deleted an item, all subsequent edits were deleted as well. Neo doesn't have a history panel. Instead, as each tool is used and closed, it is logged in the edit panel. As you can see here with this image, edit has 6 tools which have been used on the image. This has the advantage over the history panel in that it is non-linear, so you can remove or rework a tool in the middle of the stack but keep all others subsequent edits as they are. And you can go to each one and click on the eye icon to see what it did. When you click on a tool, it takes you back in the editing process to the position after using that tool. So here, this is after super contrast, and if I click on that, you can see that's before super contrast. If I go back here, that's that's the original image, and that's after the develop tool. For any tool in the edit list, you can go into it and adjust the settings. So if I click on Enhance AI, I can increase the amount of accent AI and the amount of the sky enhancer. If you want to remove completely one of the tools, you first click on this arrow here to reset it, and then it shows a bin icon which you click on, and Enhance AI has gone. So now if I go to the end, this is the image as edited, less the Enhance AI portion of it. Similarly, you can go in and amend the masking. So for instance, on colour harmony, if we only want it in the sky, I can put a linear gradient on, go back to the adjustment, and now you see there's no effect, there's only effect on the sky, not on the background. It's when working in a current tool that the undo command is most missed in some circumstances. So here I've reverted the image to its original state, and we're going to develop raw. We'll change the camera profile, add some contrast, protect the highlights, bring up the shadows, colour, we'll warm it up a bit of tint, and saturation. So that's where we've got to. Now, if I've decided that I haven't quite got this right, I can of course go in and adjust any of the sliders. I don't need to have an undo command there. Or of course I could just click the reset tool. The problem with that is that in a tool like Develop, which has various sections like light, curves, colour, if I reset, everything goes back. You've lost all your adjustments, not just the one that you want to change. The other area where it's a bit of a pain is in masking. So I'll just go back and do these adjustments, warm it up a bit of tint, a bit of saturation, and enhance AI, or accent AI rather, sky enhancer. Okay, so this button here allows you to have an overall original and current state toggle. Now, I'm sure you won't want to do it on this example, but let's go to black and white, convert to black and white, and then we'll go into masking. Obviously I could reverse that by clicking on the arrow, but we'll convert to black and white, we'll go into masking, go into brush, and we'll paint the adjustment on the beach. For no particular reason, but if I use black and white you'll be able to see what I mean easier. Okay, we need to go a bit further. Reduce size of the brush with the left arrow key and go along this bit here. Okay, that'll do. Now let's say by mistake I did that. Now obviously that's just a slip of the finger. Now if we had an undo, I could just press Control or Command Z, it would disappear. It is actually in here under Edit, Undo, but of course it doesn't work. So it's not like a slider where I can just reverse it. So if I want to correct that mistake, I then have to go into Erase, get a slightly bigger brush, and actually manually remove it, which is certainly much harder work than just pressing Control and Z. So I do hope that they do reintroduce the command, or at least enable it. But in a lot of circumstances, if you're using sliders, you can readjust them, or you can go into the Edits panel and adjust any of the previous tools, or indeed remove them. So that's at least a partial workaround. So I hope you find this useful. I'll shortly post a video on the portrait background removal tool. In the meantime, thanks for watching.